Alright, my name is Shane Tenario, and my topic is going to be about fluid mechanics. It is on boundary layers and drag and fluid flow. I know y'all heard a lot about it constantly, so bear with me a bit. So, to get into it, what is fluid flow? It is basically a liquid or a gas going past a surface, whether it be exterior or interior. So, but why is it critical? In some cases, well, it helps us figure out the lift and drag stuff on aircrafts, how to design F1 cars, keep the downward force on it and on a track so it doesn't, lift off, and you don't end up like this guy, where if we don't figure out how the parachute works, one in a lifetime experience right there. So our primary focus with the fluid flow is basically in boundary layers and drag forces and how it affects energy consumption and performance overall in engineered systems. So what is a boundary layer? It's a thin region upon the surface where the fluid velocity transitions from zero at the surface to the free stream. This zero velocity point is called a no-slip condition, where basically the particle at the very point of the surface, isn't moving, it's sticking right there, and it just slowly transitions up and increasing speed until it reaches like the free stream. There's two different boundary layers we're going to consider, or there are two boundary layers. One is laminar, very smooth, parallel lines, orderly flow, and then there's a turbulent boundary layer, which is chaotic, has a lot of eddies, swarming in the very profile you'll see when I write down. But overall, boundary layers influence flow resistance and overall drag. So, y'all have seen this before a lot of times. Reynolds number helps us define what the boundary layers are, whether it's laminar or turbulent. A low Reynolds number is usually under the 2300 number, or a high Reynolds number dictates a turbulent flow. I'm going to write out what this will look like on the exterior surface. So we usually have, the surface, a good boundary layer, and so we have a transition zone, usually right here. This is the 2300 Reynolds number we're gonna put right here. So in between here, this kind of transition, it's kind of hard to tell whether it's laminar or turbulent. But on the right side, you'll have a laminar flow, orderly fashion, everything. And then on the right side is where we'll put the turbulent. Just to kind of give you an overlook of it. As you can see, there's the chaotic lines and everything. So, why is this important? Why is the laminar and turbulent stuff important? Helps us kind of define what the drag is overall on the body that we're trying to design in an engineering purpose. So, in the body overall, we have something called separation, which kind of occurs when the flow detaches from the surface due to adverse pressure gradients, or in some cases when we're in the engineering design, there's a sharp cutoff during the design. Let's say for an 18-wheeler truck, it's like a box of sorts. The fluid flow is kind of coming in the free stream. It's kind of hard to diverse around tight corners, so this is where the separation kind of occurs. Kind of shoots upwards, but in the case where we want to streamline that body, kind of make it longer, as you can see in this picture, kind of streamlined, makes it a lot easier for the flow to go around the obstacle or whatever we're trying to create. Or you have a very bluff body, as you can see, wide and thick. But with this separation, kind of comes into play. There's something that comes into play called a rate region, where this is where the separation occurs, and then they have like a wake region right here where there's the low pressure here, but we also have a high pressure. This is where the types of drag starts to come in. As I was saying, this is a pressure drag, high pressure, low pressure, that's the separation, all that. And then the other drag we're going to consider is skin friction drag, which is dealing with the viscosity of the fluid that's involved and the surface interactions. To kind of explain that a bit more on why we need to determine whether we could use laminar and turbulent, I'm going to use the golf ball as an example. So if we were to create a normal sphere, and we want to try and keep the separation on the golf ball, it's going to be hard since it's, perfectly rounded and everything, but in the case for a golf ball, it has like these little dents to trip up the turbulence to kind of reduce this separation. The separation helps us decrease, or when the separation will occur. Just make dots here. Compared to this one without the dots. Sorry for my bad drawing. But this one would have an overall big wake region, bigger pressure drag. This one, smaller wake region, smaller pressure drag. I don't know if I said that right. But yeah. Overall, what is the applications for this? Well, vehicles, say like I was just saying earlier, the 18-wheelers, you have a boxy 18-wheeler, it's kind of creating a lot of pressure drag compared to the one on the left, which, as we've seen, engineered to where it wants to keep that separation line from getting any closer, trying to reduce whatever drag we may encounter. For aircraft, which are very streamlined, reduce any of the pressure drag, but in this case, there's also some bad effects where if we make it more streamlined, we're considering adding on more skin friction drag, but we're reducing the pressure drag, but also in vice versa. We have to drop off some, so we'll have more pressure drag, less skin friction, or more skin friction, less pressure drag. And in ships cases, we will have smooth hulls or air bubbles to lower such drags. So kind of in conclusion, boundary layers are crucial for increasing and reducing drag, and it kind of helps us control or lead significant gains in efficiencies for all sorts of vehicles and stuff. Any questions?
Yeah. So for my question, exactly this wake region, we don't want it, especially if you're trying to reduce drag. So in an aircraft, how do you think the aircraft's wing is shaped in order to reduce this wake?
To kind of reduce the weight, we want to streamline the overall wing. So you wouldn't want a big box of a wing. So that separation, so it's kind of like that. So there's a lot of chaotic formation right there compared to what the aircraft wings, which are somewhat streamlined, allows the float to kind of move around it, give it enough time. So you kind of want to design the wings in that kind of general sense to lower the wake region and reduce the pressure drag. But in doing so, we add more skin friction depending on how we design it.